Welcome back to Study on Spotlight, and today episode we have our special guest from New Zealand. So we have Chris and Sarah. So would you like to introduce yourself, who you are and where you're from, and what's your position as well?
Kia ora everybody, my name's Chris Hart. I work at Nelson College in Nelson, New Zealand. I've worked at the school 20 years and I'm really proud to be International Director at the school.
Hi, my name's Sarah Turner from Nelson College for Girls, based in the Sunshine Capital of New Zealand, International Director and worked in education for over 18 years.
Wow, so you two have a long experience in the international education. So first of all, most of students and parents would know where's Nelson and how far is it from Hong Kong? So you have been just traveling to from New Zealand. So how did you get here?
Well, we've actually come via Germany. But if we were, and we're going back, and tomorrow we're going to Japan. But if we were going straight back to Nelson, it's a 12-hour flight, Air New Zealand fly there via Cathay. And generally they fly into Auckland. Auckland's the biggest city in New Zealand. It's on the North Island, 1.5 million people. And from there it's a domestic flight of about 1 hour to Nelson. Nelson's located at the top of the South Island. It's a city of about 50,000 people, and the wider region is about 100,000 people.
So how would you compare it to Auckland about the lifestyles? Because Hong Kong students coming from cities and very vibrant and very convenient, but what about how's in Nelson?
Well, Nelson has incredibly friendly people. This very scenic. We're surrounded by national parks, beaches, lakes, ski field close to where we live as well. It really offers everything. We've got shops, malls, cinemas, but it's also a very safe environment, very beautiful, clean and friendly.
Yeah, just for 50,000.
Yeah, I guess I'd add to that. It's very convenient. So the two schools are a short walking distance from the city themselves, so the students can access everything, like Sarah said, everything in the city that they might need. Obviously, we don't have the big shopping malls that you have in the bigger cities, but it's clean and beautiful and like Sarah said, very safe. So parents can feel assured that the students are in good hands when they come to our schools.
We offer quite a unique environment in the fact we are in the centre of the city. So Nelson College is the oldest school in New Zealand, 170 years of educating boys, and Nelson College for Girls is just over 140 years old, only a few hundred metres from the cathedral in the centre of town.
Wow, so students must be very safe and happy studying.
I guess that's what's, we were talking earlier about New Zealand education, and I guess compared to some of the other countries, that's what's different about New Zealand. So our job as International Director, we're employed directly by the schools, and all schools in New Zealand have these kind of roles, and it's our job to make sure the students are safe and happy with their academics and their co-curricular, the music and sport that they want to do, and their accommodation. And so we're available 24 hours a day, and we have a staff that work with us as well, and solely to make sure the international students are happy.
So surely, parents students as a second language, English is like a second language speaker, so they might struggle when they first come to New Zealand. So how does school support them, and any extra lessons or extra classes that they would attend?
Both our schools have great support structures. Our international students are extra lucky in the fact they have a team, both at Nelson College and Nelson College for Girls, of staff that assist them. We also have a special arahi system that assists them within the school, so extra staff that look out for them. If you're in our boarding facilities, there's boarding staff as well. So huge range of support.
And adding to that, obviously we have a full ESOL program. So we can take students with beginner, cat dog, ABC, kind of through to academic English and IELTS and university pathways and things like that. And we've had international students at our school since 1992, so a long history of doing that. Obviously it does help with the better the English when the students arrive, it makes it far easier for them to integrate a little bit better. And for safety also it's really good because boys and girls can sign out at our schools in the afternoons and the weekends and things like that and explore the city and explore the region, and so if they can communicate it makes it so much easier to get on the bus and explore. Yeah.
I know, but especially when we learn English, and I don't know when I was back in school in Hong Kong, because learning English lessons is different to life,
conversational
life,
English,
all the
time.
time. I know, so it's really hard. It's like when you go overseas to study, it's kind of take time to adapt into the academic environment as well as the lifestyles. So I think it's good that the school have the department support and as well as the boarding staff to take care of.
Yeah, there's lots of nurturing, including on a peer support level. So when students arrive, we buddy them with domestic students for a couple of days. Also in the boarding house, they're buddied with a sister straight away. So from the time you arrive, you're very well supported.
And I'd add to that as well, because we have international students in boarding, the older boys mentor the younger boys when they arrive as well. And so they've been there. Lots of our students are multiple year students. They come for multiple years for university pathways. And so those year 13s, the older students at our school, have really valuable experience that they're more than happy to pass on to the younger student.
I know. Because I went to a boarding school in the UK as well, so I understand having a buddy, like a local student by your side, you know what to do, because it's so different. Because in Hong Kong, when we go and study in school, we stay in our room class, like for the whole time. So we don't change classroom.
You don't change
not
classrooms
at all.
or subjects.
I don't know. So the teachers come to us, that we just sit there and wait. That's all. But then when I first went overseas, and I was so shocked, I was like, I need to run around the school. I was like, what am I doing? Where am I going next? So it's always good to have someone already studied there for a few years, or even a local student to bring you around to guide you, because it's so different the way how we study. And I think it's also because of this kind of style, like it's kind of leading you having better time management and getting yourself around in a way. So it's
and variety and opportunity. It's nice to move classrooms and have the space that will assist you to learn, and different teachers. We also have a student support office, so if any students don't know where they're going, there is a runner or a staff member that will take you where you need to go.
Okay.
I guess that's touching on what we talked about before about New Zealand education system being slightly different. The students get so much choice in New Zealand, and if they want to do art photography and they want to do a technical subject like engineering, and they want to do a more a traditional academic subject like physics, in the same timetable they can do. And so they just move around for the different areas of the schools, and all schools, both our schools are set up with all of those kind of different areas of education. But it means the students can try new things, and then find a passion for something.
You just mentioned about like photography, engineering, all this technology like subjects as well. So what else? Because students are, especially when it comes to science, students always like having the biology, chemistry, physics. That's all. That's what you get in Hong Kong. But what else? Is there any other specific or some subjects that students haven't even heard of?
That is a very hard question, purely because we have so many options. So we'd need a very long podcast to go through all the subjects. But there's a huge variety: outdoor education, food and lifestyles, business studies. Lots of art, sculpture, music, just so many options.
Essentially how it works in New Zealand is in the younger years, in year 7, 8, 9, 10, there's more compulsory subjects, and the idea is that you try a broad range of things. So there's a compulsory technology rotation where they're doing computers and architectural drawing and woodwork and metalwork. Social
so they
science.
do it like rotated by term?
Yes. They get kind of 2.5 months. So our terms are about 2.5 months, 10 weeks long. And then in year 10 they start to get some options like accounting and business and economics and things like that, and they can specialise in something they've tried in the younger year groups, so art and design and photography. And then when they get into year 11, 12 and 13, that's our NCA, that's our national curriculum, our national certificate years. It just opens out into lots and lots of different subjects, and we have the flexibility to move students around depending on ability as well. So if a student has a special talent for physics, but he's only year 11 age, we can put in a year 12 or year 13 physics class and extend them that way. So we have a lot of flexibility, and there's a lot of choice.
It's customised for the student, and I think that's key. Like my 17-year-old daughter is very different from my 16-year-old son, so the fact it's customised and you can be extended, she's done multiple level learning, and it's worked incredibly well, and a lot of our international students are the same. So we really do customise every timetable for the individual student, and that may change during their journey with us, during the year or the next year, depending on what pathway they want to take. And as Chris touched on, their talents and abilities, it's really important that we maximise the opportunities for the individual.
recent students from Hong Kong have generally kind of looked at commerce degrees, so come to us and then stayed for multiple years and gone to university entrance and done commerce, so they're doing accounting and business studies. Business studies is quite an interesting subject in New Zealand because it's a full-year program, but it's you're making a small business. And so you work with a group of people, so there's those people skills. They start off by designing the product, working out what the product's going to be, and doing some research into how that would work, and then finding a supplier to make that product and testing it. Then they're working on the marketing side, and then they're doing the sales, and then they're doing a final report. So it's, we've had a couple of students recently who've actually, instead of going to university, have carried on with that project. The project's been so successful. So other Hong Kong students recently have been more interested in the kind of design and the creative side. Some musicians and designers, so interior design, photography, and art, painting, and that kind of creative. It really, like Sarah said, it really depends on the student and their individuality, and they're able to explore and find a passion for something. It's great.
So does it mean as long as they sign up for the course that there's no any requirement to get into it?
It depends on the subject. We can always negotiate as well. So, like Sarah said, that if you've done the Year 11 course, which is the first year of the national certificate, and you change your mind halfway through or towards the end of the year that actually in the second year you'd like to do something slightly different, it's always possible to change. It might need a little bit more extra work from the student. So I can give an example. I had two Korean boys, they're twins actually, and they've now at Canterbury University in New Zealand have got a scholarship for engineering, but in year 12 they weren't doing physics.
Right.
And so when in year 13 they were on more of a biology kind of science course, and then at the start of year 13 they decided actually engineering was their passion, and so I talked to the physics teacher, and we ended up they did 2 years of physics in one. So they did half the physics course, a year 12 physics course, while they were doing the year 13 course, just so they could catch up, and I was able to manipulate the timetable so that could happen.
Okay.
And
Now
they've got a scholarship at engineering at Canterbury and doing really well. So
right.
identical twins as well, interesting story. Yeah. I never told them, and I could
both
never
going for engineering.
Yeah, I called them the same name for 3 years because just as a joke. I didn't know them apart.
But yeah, especially I think like comparing to other countries, the education system, they didn't have the options for students to change so flexible between subjects, especially for the UK, which is a very popular destination for Hong Kong students. Once you decided to do your GCSE and then into A level, then it's straight into
the pathway's set, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from the UK myself, so I've been through the GCSE and A level system, so I know this is a much more flexible system. Yeah, and you because the assessments work like there's credits for each of the assessments, and you get points basically when you pass the assessment.
Yeah.
And so that enables you. All the courses are full years, so they start in January and finish in December. But you can earn points. I've just had a Japanese student decide that he was doing history in year 11 in fifth form, and he decided halfway through the year that it wasn't for him. Could he switch to geography? But he had some points from history, and he keeps those points. He doesn't lose them, and they're in the bank in his achievements. And now he's going into geography, and now he's earning some more points that way. So yeah, it's very forgiving and very flexible, and allows the students some individuality.
So for the boys and the girls, do they have like mixed classes like often, or do they just do separate classes in both schools?
At the moment, our girls stay on campus to have their subjects, and the boys do the same. But we do mix certain activities and music groups, jazz bands, orchestras, drama groups. So really we're offering the best of both worlds. It's single-sex education, but with joint activities. So absolutely the girls see the boys. We also have a special international program that we do together. So every term we do at least a couple of special activities, like a civic welcome. There's international dances, trips to the ski field.
Sports days, yeah. And in the holidays we have a shared holiday program.
Oh, okay.
So currently my boys are down at the girls' school.
Oh, so they moved to the boarding school, boarding houses.
Yeah, because the domestic students go home during our term break holidays. So New Zealand has 4 terms, and between each of those terms there's a 2-week holiday. And we alternate between the boys and the girls' school about who's hosting them. So it's girls' college, it's holidays right now. It's girls' college's turn to host, so all the boys have gone down to the girls' school and enjoying the facilities down there.
So you have 2 boarding houses.
We do,
and
yeah.
You have one.
We have one boarding house. Yes.
But you can accommodate the rest of the international boys.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So how common is it as having like in New Zealand, because most of the schools are separate into boys and girls, but Is it very common? Or?
No. The oldest schools in New Zealand are boys and girls, only single sex. So New Zealand was founded in 1840 when the Treaty of Waitangi was signed by Pākehā Māori. There was European people there before. Nelson College was one of the first schools founded after that in 1856. So that's why we're almost 170 years old, like Sarah said. Back then only boys were education. Sorry, girls. And so boys' schools were it. And then Girls' College was founded in 1883. And by then, fortunately, girls were allowed to go to school. And so that's why Girls' College is one of the oldest girls' schools. It's only the more recent modern schools in New Zealand that are co-educational.
But not that common.
Our two schools have carried on. The majority of schools in New Zealand would be co-education, but the older schools are single sex. For New Zealand education, boys do better at boys' schools, statistically. So boys in boys' schools do better than boys in the co-education schools. People ask me why. I always say, well, we can teach boys stuff to boys. We don't have to compromise on what we're doing. The boys learn in a slightly different way sometimes, and so we're able to narrow that down and work on them. Girls are amazing creatures. They do well everywhere. So girls at girls' schools do amazing, and girls at Pride do amazing.
Yeah, but they do teach differently, and it works very well. And in our region, we get more scholarships to university than any other school. So very high academic results. And I think the thing is, at all schools, there's all levels, and it's about the community that our school has, providing opportunities for each and every one of our students. That's what's important.
And I believe that both schools having like exchange programs like for the international students and having social events, activities that also helps with that. But I'm talking about like after school activities. I came up with something on your brochures that underwater hockey. Can you explain what is that? It sounds really British.
Yes,
to me,
well, you're spoiled for choice when you come to Nelson. There is such a range of extracurricular activities, clubs, chess clubs, anime clubs, debating clubs, sports. Nelson College is offering 30 sports. We're currently offering 28. And I really encourage my girls to try something new, or at least get involved in some extra activity after school. It's a great way to make friends, keep fit. We've also got an incredible music program. You can have individual lessons in numerous instruments, as well as hire. So for international students, for $30 a term, you can hire an instrument. We don't recommend travelling with a violin or something, so we can assist with that. And there's jazz groups, orchestras, bands, which we do with Boys College, some just for girls, but joint groups like that. So there is just so many opportunities.
Going back to your question about underwater hockey, so it's a joint sport. So boys and girls play together on the same team, mixed. It's in the pool, obviously, in the swimming pool. They wear a snorkel and a mask and flippers, and then you get a little stick in your hand, and there is like an ice hockey puck. So it's very heavy and it sinks on the bottom of the pool. So and there's goals at each end, and you have to dive down and hold your breath and push the puck. And it's quite physical because the other people are pushing you at the same time. But the Nelson shared team does really well in nationally in that sport. It's
national championships.
We've won multiple national championships and things like that.
And we have international students in the team.
Some girls doing it.
Yeah.
So all these activities, does it take place after school? So what's the schedules like after school for the students in the boarding house even?
That again is very individualised depending on what a student is into. So I have currently I have a student playing golf 7 days a week. I have a couple of international students who are swimming numerous occasions. I have students who are dancing, horse riding. So really, it's a very hard question to answer because it depends on the student. If you ask me what Hazel's doing after school, I could tell you, but there's no normal. I think it's what you can cope with. We would love you to make the most of the opportunities, but not at the expense of your well-being. So I think our job is to support that balance of academic, social, cultural, and really we're quite the location to meet the needs of individuals.
I guess the structure of your question, so school in New Zealand is set up from 8:45 until 3:15 in the afternoon. The system in New Zealand is to create the reason for that is to create a more well-rounded individual. So you get some time in the afternoon to explore your passion of music or sport or whatever it might be. So that 3:30 to 5:30 slot would be the 2 hours there for that's when the band practice is or the football practice or the hockey practice or whatever it might be. Some of the sport is held at school, or sometimes we affiliate with the local city because we're only, like we said before, only a short distance away from the city. Some of the sports we offer, there's just not enough students at our school to have a school team. So rowing, for example, is one of the things that we affiliate to Nelson Rowing Club. So yeah, that means that we can offer more things, but it also means it's a good connection for the boys and girls to make with other people in the community as well. They're not just meeting people at school, they're meeting people in the community, and they can explore if they're really good at tennis or if they're really good at hockey or whatever it might be, then they can explore that. Saturday and Sunday, no school as well. So a lot of the team sports are held on Saturdays, and they're seasonal. So there's a season for football and a season for hockey and a season for volleyball and basketball, for example. But yeah, it just kind of works that because it's seasonal like that. So if you're only coming for basketball, for example, you're not going to get basketball all year. So the basketballers usually play in their season, and then when it's out of season, they try something else. They go, they play volleyball, or they do tennis, or they do something else. So there's not that kind of singular focus on one sport.
So they would just rotate a whole year.
It's New Zealand's society is deemed to be healthy if you're doing multiple things rather than concentrate on one thing. So young, basically.
But if you want to specialise, there is school and club options, so you can do that.
Like your golfer who's just all about golf, and so she does golf all the time. So it is possible to do both.
And there's flexibility too with times of games. There are a number of teams, so there's good competition, and our schools have social teams and then competitive national teams that compete nationally.
They play regionally first, don't they? And then they play the South Island second, and then nationally.
And then national. Some of my international students are travelling in school teams. And some of those games are late. For example, basketball, they can be as late as 9 p.m. because there's so many teams that are playing in the region, and that's fantastic. So there's flexibility around that, and you know what time the game is, that's scheduled, and the boarders do that, have a late dinner or have dinner before and then go to their games. So, yeah.
The boarding house is really flexible with the meals. So, and they realise that practices happen at different times. So the students just need to communicate with the boarding staff about what they're doing, what their schedule is, and the staff make it happen.
Yeah. So everyone just get a chance to do whatever they want and give it a go, even you're not good at it or haven't tried before, like the underwater hockey.
Yeah.
So everyone have the chance to like go for it and give it a shot. If you want to carry on and be professional, then just play with competing in the regional and then the national.
Yeah, well, we have sport development academies. So Girls College. You were telling me about your athlete development.
Yeah. And you've got one as well. And there's also students can continue to play what they want to when they come. So I've got girls from Hong Kong that are very good at table tennis and badminton, and we can offer those after school, at school and also club level. Yeah.
So how about if students not doing sport or doing any activities at night? What are they doing in the boarding school? Are they doing any studies or any supervised study time?
Yeah, so like I said, if we look back at the day again, so students get up about 7:30 in the morning. They get woken up by a staff member. Breakfast is at 8, so 3 meals a day on school grounds, in the dining room, and then 8:45 till 3:15 is school, with a lunch break in the middle, which they eat together with the other boarding students. Then there's that period of 3:15 till about 5:45, which is free time, sport practice, music practice. Sometimes they can sign out. They can leave our grounds and go to the city with their friends, which often they do. Dinner at about 5:45. If there's a special occasion, a birthday or something like that, or there's a sport, like we talked about, there's a sport game, or they've been invited to a domestic friend's house for something like that, then that can happen at that time. They don't have to. It's not compulsory to come back at dinner. As long as they communicate.
Even during the weekdays.
Yeah, as long as they communicate with staff.
Okay.
Yeah. And then after dinner, there is compulsory study time. So we have teachers that work in the boarding house that help supervise homework. The younger students, it's directly supervised. It's, show me where you work. The teachers email with the homework and try to get them in that regular study pattern. The older students have their own desks and chairs in their room, and they're able to kind of manage themselves, more trusted at that, although we do follow up with them if it's not going very well. It's one of our jobs is to maintain their academic. And so if we notice, if a teacher comes to us and say, he needs to do a little bit more chemistry work, then we'll let the boarding house know and then make sure that that's monitored. about 7:30 to about 9 o'clock, then is again recreation time. So the beauty of being in boarding is that they have access to the gymnasiums and the AstroTurf, and in the summer the swimming pools. So the boarding staff open all of those, and boys and girls can go and do what they want. And then the bedtime rotation starts from about 9 o'clock. When you've got 40, we have 2 houses with about 40 students, 45 students in, and you've got how many in your boarding house?
Just over 70.
So when you've got that many students, you have to have a bit of a routine in the evening for getting them all to sleep, and so the younger ones will go to bed about 9:30, and the old about 11 o'clock by the time the last ones go to bed.
Yeah,
And that's
one year group by each time.
yeah, and that's the general weekday when the school's on the next day. Friday and Saturday night, students are allowed to sign out in the evenings. So after dinner, the older students. So they can go to the movies or a friend's house or party or whatever might be on Friday. Social things Fridays and Saturday nights, and again that's by negotiation. So it's just a matter of them communicating to the boarding staff and saying, "I've got this on, can I go?" And the boarding staff will say, "No, yeah, no problem. What time will you come back?" And just kind of communicating really.
We're slightly different with a few of those times, but I think there's absolutely freedom, and it's different depending on your year level, and there's really specific details because routine's important, but you're absolutely part of the boarding family, and there is free time, but there's also opportunity to do extra activities.
I guess going back to your question, what do? They make friends. I mean, because they're within 70 girls or 40 boys, in my case 45 boys in each house, there's always boys doing things. There's always somebody saying, "Oh, do you want to come to the city with me? Do you want to go play table tennis? Do you want to go play football?" or something like that. So there's, if you want to, you can be entertained all the time, but also there's space where you can get your own time and be by yourself as well. And so it's a nice mix. Yeah.
Yeah. At Nelson College for Girls, the girls actually have a private cubicle, so they can have their own space, which is also important.
So each girls get their own private cubicle?
Yes. It's also important to know that both our boarding houses are over 90% domestic students, so you're not coming to just be surrounded by international students. We want that as a supportive group for you, but it's really important too that you're making domestic students and meeting their friends and to be part of the
Making
Kiwi
those
culture.
connections, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I remember being in boarding house is so busy because there's a lot of activities going on, and especially with like students, local domestic girls and students, and especially international students coming from different cultural backgrounds.
Yeah.
So just
So we both have about 10 different nationalities of international students at our school. So there's a nice mix. I currently have 4 boys from Hong Kong. Sarah, you have 3, I think. Did you say?
3 from Hong Kong currently. Yes.
Yeah.
The other thing we haven't talked about is the food options in boarding. There's so many. There's start off the day with breakfast, and at Nelson College for Girls, there's breakfast, and you pack your own morning tea and lunch to take up to school. You don't go back to the boarding house at lunch, purely because we want you to stay with all the domestic students during the school day. Then you go back, and there's afternoon tea before you go to your sports or whatever you're doing for the afternoon. Then there's dinner, supper, dinner, dessert, and then supper. And you can have as much as you need to have. So, and it's also a selection. You choose what you like, a buffet style food. But dietary requirements are met. So if you're a vegetarian, gluten-free, celiac, halal diet, it's all catered for, which is really important.
you just need to heads up the school to prepare for that special diet.
Yeah.
So what about the other things like parents and students always want to ask about phone usage, whether they're going to take away during night, or what about the usage during schools? Because I know the New Zealand government put a ban on it.
So I think the schools operate slightly differently with the cell phone. I'll talk about our school maybe in a second. So at Nelson College, cell phones are banned across all government schools in New Zealand, so that includes our school. So between 8:45 and 3:15, you're not allowed to have a cell phone at school, unless you've got express permission from a teacher and you're using it for a classroom activity. So like in photography, for example, sometimes they use cell phones because they take slightly different pictures. But other than that, no cell phones. In the boarding house, so we give students who've got full access to Wi-Fi and things like that for their laptops, for work devices at school. And then after school, cell phones are obviously fine until we do take the cell phones and computers off the younger students at our school. Simply because we want them to get a good night's sleep, and sometimes they need some help managing that. and so that would be laptops, iPads, cell phones, and things like that. And we turn the Wi-Fi off as well at night time, and that's for all students.
That's the most easiest way. Just turn off the
Yeah, the older students get to keep them unless they're not managing themselves very well. And the next morning, we use it as a bit of our students can get them back as if their room's tidy. So it's just a way before they go to school, just make sure that, because during the school day when they're at school, our cleaners go in and clean the house, and so it's important that they can see the floor and to be able to clean around them. What's the story, it goes?
So as Chris said, yes, during school time, 8:45 to 3:10, there's no cell phones. And our school uses an online system, Microsoft Teams, so you can still communicate with your friends or staff members during school time, just not on a cell phone. We don't want people TikToking during the day.
So
we want
they use it on the laptop to communicate?
Yes. Okay. Yes, absolutely. So everybody at our school is required to have a device. So you can still communicate with your friends and staff members during that time on that. After school, cell phone use and laptops and things is fine. In the evening, it depends on the year level you are, so I can give more specific details when people are interested on the year level about what times that you can use that. But it is a privilege, and as you get older, the longer you're allowed your devices. Senior students are allowed to keep them overnight unless it's misused as well. So
Right. I think that's more students like worry about when they're going to a boarding school, like all the devices and all these like internet connections, keeping in touch with friends.
Yeah, we obviously we want them to keep in touch with their friends and family. That's really important that they connect with home. It's just we are responsible for them while they're in New Zealand, and the parents are spending a lot of money to make sure that they're getting good education. And sometimes, like I said before, sometimes they need a little bit of help managing that.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing. But it's certainly don't want it to come across as being over the top. I don't think it is. I think it's a nice balance that we've got.
Yeah, the restrictions are there for a reason. Saying that, with international students, we really encourage our students to stay in touch with their families. I'm always saying to the girls, make sure you send that picture home to mum. Do they know you're doing this? Send them that picture we just took. Or that's really important, because I would want my children to do the same thing. And then we've got different time zones, but there's always a way. So if there's challenges for a student to be communicating with their family, we can sit down and talk about the best time to be doing that on a regular basis, because we strongly encourage that. Yeah.
And I know, like, the international department also keeping a very good relationship with the parents and communicating what's going on with the boys and the girls at school. So it's another, like, a bonus point for parents as well.
Yeah, and I think that's across the whole of that's the teachers as well. So New Zealand education overall. So all the parents get the teacher email addresses. They're free to email the teachers. Parent-teacher night, we have online parent-teacher things. So the parents are encouraged to call in, and we have specific only online sessions, and we block those out for international parents to make sure they connect with the teachers. And like we touched on before, it's our jobs at our schools to be that link person between the student and the teacher and the agent and the parents. And so it's really important that we're in touch with all of that. And we're proud of what we do, and we like to make sure it's the happiest days we talked about this before. The happiest day that we have is at the end of the process, when the student is finished and they've got to where they've made their pathway and they've got to where they want to go, and we have to say goodbye.
It's the hardest part of the job.
It's the happiest, but also the sad part.
Yeah.
But it means
but
that
they always come back, do they?
Often
they
they
come back and
do.
visit, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always good, like having
That's a
good
beautiful
relationship.
thing.
Yeah, I know.
But we're both really passionate about our jobs, because it's life-changing. This is a life-changing experience for these young people.
And I guess,
very rewarding.
just to finish on that, our programs are not huge in terms of international students, in terms of schools in New Zealand, and our schools aren't huge either. So they're kind of medium. We're 1,000 students at each school, and international programs are around 35 each student as well. So we get to know the students really well, because there's only 35 of them.
Very personal.
We're contactable 24 hours a day for the students while they're there, for emergencies while they're there as well. So I see the boys 3 or 4 times a day. I'm fortunate in our setup at our school that my office is in the international area. There's an international centre with a lounge, and so they come and eat basically there, and I'm there to say hello to them, and also if they've got any questions, they can come ask me, or my coordinator who's there as well. So, and it's the same at Girls' College. They're staffed really well.
Open door policy,
Yeah.
and there's always an international staff member at school during school hours. Yeah.
I know it's always not easy to go away home, like at the age of 15 or even younger, to being in a foreign country that you have no idea or you have never been before, and just completely different culture and living lifestyles and study education styles. And I know, like, being in a very supportive community such as you have, it's very important, especially that sometimes you get homesick and you stress about your academics and friendships and all these kind of things. And it's so important, just so important having someone there. You know, there's always someone there and to support you, and just having that community behind you. And it does build up a very lifelong relationship with them. So with the schools and with friends, and just it's really important and very valuable.
Yeah, lifelong relationships and memories. Chris and I have both lived abroad ourselves, so we actually, it's funny, we've ended up in these jobs, and I think part of what we've done has made us who we are today for that very reason. We have a level of understanding of that.
We talk to the students when they arrive about a U curve of kind of where they're feeling. So when they first arrive, they're at the top of the letter U, and then they're really excited and maybe nervous. But and at some stage when they get to the bottom there, they're going to be homesick. Everyone's going to be homesick. Sometimes it takes one day, sometimes it takes 6 months, because the excitement stage lasts a bit longer. And what we try to develop relationships with the students, so that, and the boarding staff do, and so do the teaching staff, so that when that happens, there's multiple people in that student's life, and the friendships. So that student just needs to talk to somebody, whether it's the agent, the parents, the international director, or the boarding staff, or the teachers, and just get some support, because I think it's an old ancient Chinese saying, a problem solved is a problem halved, or something along those lines. I can't remember how it goes now. And then what we all want is for them to reach the other side of that U, right, where they're excited, they're happy and they're settled, and they're excelling at whatever they want to do. And then, like we said, the best day for us is when they achieve what they wanted to do, and they set off on that next stage.
Yeah, and especially all these skills is required when you go to uni and even after graduating and all this.
And it is a journey. Life is a journey, but they're not doing it alone. I think that's the thing.
And I think moving overseas for education brings on those life skills quicker, right? So everyone, if you've got an academic pathway and you do want to go to university, you're going to have to move eventually, generally. Although some people do live at home, obviously, and go to university. But those people skills, the communication and living with people, and getting to know yourself and problem solving, independence, they're all valuable skills. So
and it sets them apart as well. It's a point of differentiation. It takes a certain type of personality and individual, one, to have this opportunity, but two, to be able to do it and be successful. Huge accomplishment, and well worth it.
I agree with that. So thank you so much today for having you guys here.
Thank you for having us.
And we will see you on our next episode on Study on Spotlight. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.